Hey everybody, welcome into episode 19 of my YouTube journey. I'm so thankful for all y'all. This week hit 700 subscribers. I am blown away that 700 people has chosen to subscribe to my channel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm just in awe of that. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. But tonight we're going to talk about Mickey Mantle. He's one of the big iconic player names in Major League history. His baseball card sold for more than any other baseball card in the history of baseball cards. And he's still, to this day, I mean, he hadn't played a game since 1968. And to this day, and I was born in 69, I'm 55, so 56 years ago. And to this day, he's still the most collectible dude in the hobby. Him and Babe Ruth and Jackie Robinson. And, there's some iconic players, Willie Mays, but Mickey's right there. So let's discuss his background a little bit. Mickey, very interesting background before he became that iconic guy. So Mickey Mantle, born in Commerce, Oklahoma, in the middle of like the Dust Bowl. I mean, in the middle of nowhere, southeastern Oklahoma, mining town. People worked hard for their money, kind of a poor area. And it was generations of dudes that worked in those mines. His grandfather did, Charlie. His dad, nicknamed Mutt, also worked in those mines there. And so that looked like Mickey's future. But Mutt Mantle was determined that Mickey's future was not going to be in those mines. It was going to be in Major League Baseball, even from a young age. And we all know those guys, right? We all know the parents and the dads, especially, and some moms. I've seen some crazy moms over my time that have these big dreams for their kid when they're 6 years old and they're out there playing baseball, and their parents are acting like fools and act like every little game in a Little League T-ball game is the World Series and get tore up about stuff. So we've seen those people. I'm not sure if his dad was that way, but his dad from get-go, like I named my son Nolan after Nolan Ryan. He named his son Mickey after Mickey Cochran, the great player from the Philadelphia Athletics from his youth. So I guess you could say I'm crazy, but whatever. Mutt wanted his son so bad to be a Major League Baseball player. So like a lot of dads, when Mutt would come home from those mines and he had the grime in his fingernails and in his cuticles and up his nose and in his lungs and black from being in that mine all day and the dust and breathing that stuff, he would come home and he'd find time to throw to his son. So he was a good dad. But like a lot of dads today, but especially back then, wasn't very affectionate. Wasn't going to tell you he loved you and he was proud of you and all that stuff. So as a son, you felt like you had to earn that. And Mickey, that was a big part of his life. He always wanted to make his dad proud. He wanted to be who his dad wanted him to be. So he'd get home from school that day and his dad have him out there in the yard and he'd be throwing to him. And his dad was a left-handed thrower. So Mickey would get up there from a young age and he was a natural right-hander and he'd hit right-handed. And from a very young age, his dad determined that Mickey was going to be a switch hitter in his mind. And he would tell Mickey this, son, one day, all the great Major League hitters will be switch hitters. And so you've got to learn to do this. So he would throw to him and Mutt was left-handed, Mickey'd hit right-handed. And then Mickey's granddad, Charlie, would jump in there and he was a right-handed pitcher. So he would throw right-handed batting practice to Mickey, and Mickey'd have to switch left-handed. And he was terrible in the beginning, like anybody. I mean, if you try to turn me around hitting left-handed, I'd look like I ain't never held a bat in my life because I'm a natural right-handed hitter. Mickey was the same way. So he would some days cry, and his daddy would get on to him and say, suck it up, get back in there. You're going to learn to do this. And he would just keep pushing him, to the point where a lot of times Mickey'd want to quit, but he couldn't do it because he wanted his dad to be happy. And he would tell his wife in later years that how he wanted to make sure he hit every ball in the nose because he was so scared to disappoint his dad and see the look in his dad's eyes if he thought he was a failure. So he pushed himself so hard to be the best. And Mickey was just naturally gifted. Oh my goodness, he was gifted. He a lot of people don't realize this. When he came into the major leagues, he was the fastest guy in Major League Baseball. He was definitely the fastest guy on the Yankees when he came into camp as a 19-year-old, but just blazing speed and would hit the ball a country mile from both sides of the plate. But in the beginning, it wasn't like that. He had to learn just like anybody else. So he would learn, and so he learned to hit left-handed. And so as he grew up and he's playing in the younger age groups, he's showing that power and he's showing that speed and that athletic ability. And so he remembered one day in particular, there was this pretty good pitcher and he was having trouble with him. And the guy was a right-handed hitter, and Mickey didn't think his daddy was going to be at that game that day. He wasn't going to get off work in time, so he wasn't there. So Mickey's in the batter's box. He's going to hit right-handed against a right-handed pitcher because he knows he's going to hit him right-handed. He wasn't so sure about left-handed, and he hears this booming voice behind him. Had no idea his dad had showed up and said, "Mickey, get out of there. If you're not going to do it right, don't do it at all." Or something along that lines, and just jumped his butt right there. And Mickey felt so bad for disappointing his dad, but he never tried that again. He always did the switch hitting thing. So back to his family life. Hardworking family, didn't have a lot of money. They were a mixed family. His dad had married an older lady who was 8 years his senior, who already had a child from another relationship, and so Mickey had an older half-sister. As a kid, he dealt with sexual abuse at the hands of his stepsister. She would sexually abuse him in front of her teenage friends, and that ended up being something big in his life. So we all know how he had a self-destructive behavior. He was a womanizer. He liked to drink a lot and was drunk. And later in his years, he really came out and discussed that and talked about how wrong that was, of how he acted and how it ruined his life. And he'd always wonder about what he could have been if he would have been sober and would have been a guy that wasn't running around till the wee hours in the morning before he had a day game the next day. So that trauma, that childhood trauma, really rubbed off on him. In fact, he admitted it later in life. He wet the bed until he was 16 years old. Mickey Mantle did, because of the trauma he endured. And so unfortunately, that affects a lot of people in this country, and even people who are famous, aren't exempt from that. So he dealt with that. So as he got older, he's dealing with trauma. He's wanting to be the best. He becomes a football star as well. He breaks his leg, and his leg gets infected. In fact, they thought at one point they might even have to amputate his leg. But there was a new medicine that came out near about that time, and they gave it to him, called penicillin of all things. And it made the infection go away, and he was able to save his leg. It really didn't hamper his speed or anything at that time when he was younger. But because of that, when he hit the major leagues as a 19-year-old, when the Korean War broke out and so many guys went off to war, like Willie Mays, and of course Ted Williams got called back, and a bunch of guys, he had to keep doing physical tests, and they would not allow him to go to war. And a lot of people called him draft dodger and all this other stuff during that period of time, but it wasn't his fault. He couldn't. So he heals from his leg injury. So now he's starting to get attention from football scouts. The famous coach with the Oklahoma Sooners wanted him to come play football there. And but again, he had baseball aspirations. The New York Yankees scout starts coming around, a guy named Tom Greenwade. And this is where it gets a little sticky. He starts playing the Mantles, and he actually forms a relationship with Mantle's principal at his high school. And we don't know whether he paid him off. Maybe he gave him some autographed balls from New York Yankee guys. Who knows? Or maybe the principal was just a Yankees fan. We don't know. But we do know when other teams would come to the school to talk to Mantle's baseball coach, or would want to talk to Mantle himself, the principal would tell the story about his leg injury, and they're not sure he's even going to be able to play ball. And they're not that, they're not that hopeful that he would even be able to play ball in college because of his leg injury. And he would scare the scouts off to the point where the Yankees basically, it was a one-man show on who was scouting him and who was going to sign him. So because of that, Mantle didn't have a lot of other scouts courting him. And Tom Greenwade knew when you're a scout and you see that guy, that's a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And he knew that Mickey Mantle was a definitely can't-miss prospect that was going to be a major leaguer one day. So he broke major league rules, and he's dealing with Mantle, and he's talking to him as a high schooler before he graduates. That was against the rules. And then when he graduates, the day he graduates, they got a contract in front of him. And the way he deals with Mutt Mantle, now all this is in the book I read, and Mutt Mantle, he didn't know. He's a minor. All he knew was he wanted his son to play Major League Baseball, and he had a New York Yankee scout wanting him right then and there. So the guy, Greenwade, asked Mutt, said, what's it going to take to sign him? Like, we're not sure about him. He's a shortstop, but we think he's not that big, and we know he can hit, but we're not really sure. And he was lying through his teeth. He knew what was going to happen. He had seen enough baseball players. So Mutt Mantle's like, well, if he works in the mines, he would make this much. And if he plays on a weekend team here, they would pay him this much. So Tom Greenwade says, well, if we could get him to Joplin, Missouri, we could pay him $400 for 3 months of ball. That's a lot of money. And we'd be willing to give him $1,100 just to sign. So a $1,500 signing day, that's what he could get. And they're like, let's go. So he signs his name on the dotted line. And so here's the deal. This is what I don't understand. Like, why would he do that? Did he get the pocket? Because the Yankees had already told him, it's a no-brainer. $25,000 is what we're willing to sign him for. $25,000. Why wouldn't he just give him the $25,000? And if he wouldn't have chased the other scouts around, there would have been people competing for Mantle. That would have drove his price up. They could have even said, hey, Mickey's thinking about going to Oklahoma and playing football. So we're going to have to get more money than that, or he's just going to go play football. We think he's a football star and he could get a free education. But they didn't know to do that. So Greenwade completely took advantage of him. And here's the crazy thing. Later on, Greenwade bragged about being the guy that discovered Mickey Mantle. That, he was the guy. He was a once-in-a-lifetime kid. He knew it from the time he saw him. Well, if he knew it from the time he saw him, then why did he only give him $1,500? That's ridiculous. So before Mantle ever went off to his first minor league game or spring training or whatever, he went to a short season in Joplin. Before he ever did that, there was a thing in the paper, but it was talking about down the road, there was another guy that had signed for $50,000 in Oklahoma who it says the Yankees were trying to get him really bad and got outbid for him. And Mantle saw that in the paper and showed it to his dad. And right then they knew they had been taken. They had been taken to the cleaners. They signed, and they were a poor family too. And Greenwade knew that. So why wouldn't he try to get him the most money? Anyways, beyond. That's a legendary story. And so, Greenwade went to his death saying he didn't break any rules and all this other stuff, but he was dirty. He did him dirty, and Mantle never forgot that. So Mantle goes off to in 1950. He goes to Joplin, tears it up, leads the league in most categories. I mean, just torches everybody. At the end of 50, he gets called to the Yankees. He can't dress or anything, but he's there at the end of the season and in the playoffs and World Series. He's there in the dugout. So he gets to witness firsthand what Yankee Stadium is like, and everybody's wanting to get a look at this new kid that they'd heard about. In 51, he comes in. He's supposed to show up at spring training early for an instructional camp. He's not there. Casey Stengel, the manager, is having a fit. Where is Mickey? They can't get a hold of him. The reason they can't get a hold of him, they're so poor, they ain't got a phone in their house. So finally, Stengel gets a hold of the local newspaper, gets the newspaper guy to run down to their house and say, hey, the Yankees are looking for you. You're supposed to be at this thing. Well, Mantle had gotten a letter in the mail and had waited for another letter and never came. He knew about the instructional camp, but the kid didn't have no money to get to Arizona where they were having the spring training that year to Phoenix. He had no money. So he couldn't get there. And so he was waiting for a plane or a bus ticket or a train ticket to get there and never came. So he goes to the mine where his dad worked and made a phone call. And he calls the Yankees and says, I ain't got any money. So they have to wire some money so he can get there. So he's a little bit late. He shows up in camp, and there's a guy there that is a big signee, and he's supposed to be all that. And he had led, I can't remember his name. I'm sorry about that. If you know the name, leave it in the comments. But he had played for the University of California, was fourth in the Heisman Trophy voting as a quarterback, taking them to I think to the Rose Bowl, and had taken his baseball team at University of California to the World Series, and he had signed for, I think, $40,000. So he was called a bonus baby. He had to be on the Major League roster. He couldn't hold a candle to Mantle, and everybody knew it from the get-go. So he is this dude that everybody knows is going to be a star. So the question is he going to start out in the major leagues, or is he going to start out in the minor leagues? Casey Stengel, he wants him to start out in the major leagues. Stengel, he idolized John McGraw, and he always dreamt one day when he was a manager that he was going to have a guy like John McGraw did, like he did Jimmy Fox. Jimmy Fox shows up at camp, and he's this phenom right out the gate. He has this weird high step in his stance and just raked. And John McGraw saw from the very beginning that Jimmy Fox was special, and he would not let him go to the minors. John McGraw wanted him right by his side so that he would be responsible for how good Jimmy Fox was going to be. He didn't want somebody else to ruin him. Stengel thought, this is my Jimmy Fox. I don't want him in the minors. I want him in the majors. So he was kind of fighting with the general manager. The general manager wanted him to go to the minor leagues. And he thought he was too young at 19 years old to start off in the Yankees, playing in Yankee Stadium in that market. And but Stengel thought different. He could see right away how talented this kid was. They just needed to teach him to play outfield. So that's what they did. And so he starts the season as a major leaguer at 19 years old in New York. And I'm going to stop the video right now. It's going to be a two-parter. I know right now you're going, boo. We're gonna have the next part be about once he gets in the majors, what happens. There's just too much to talk about. So we're going to talk about that on the next one. But tonight we're going to show some cards. We're going to start out in the 60s, work our way back from his 1969 card all the way back to 1950s. And then the next episode, we're going to talk about once he gets there, what happens and how he becomes Mickey Mantle that we know today. And then we'll finish my card run. I've got all the main tops and Bowmans, and I'm proud of my Mickey Mantle collection. I can't wait to show it to you. So stay tuned. We're going to look at some cards. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. But I'm going to save the best for last. So we're going to start the 60s. And the next episode, we'll go over the 50s. So this is his 1969, this last card. He didn't even play in 69, but one thing you're going to notice as I show all these cards, Topps, they knew who their golden goose was, so they were going to make plenty of cards with Mickey Mantle on it. This slab has some sort of a film on it. I don't really know. I need to get some Windex out, but beautiful card. And you'll notice a lot of these, he's batting left-handed. Some of them he's batting right-handed. But a great card. This is the year I was born. If you'll notice too on my cards, I live in the mid grades. I try for eye appeal, but I'm not going to have, this is about as high as it's going to get as a 7, but it's his last one. So a little more affordable that way. That's a 69. We got the 68 Topps Superstars with Killebrew, Mays, and Mantle. And it's a great card of some outstanding, all-time great Hall of Famers. Of course, they're all past now, but it's a great card of 3 all-time greats. I know the Everyday Card Collector, Jason, just did a episode recently. If you don't watch his channel, check him out. He's really good. But he was talking about how affordable multiplayer cards are compared to the single cards, and he's exactly right. These are great cards. So nothing wrong with owning one of those. Here's his 1968. Again, he's batting left-handed. Very similar picture to several other in the 60s. Very similar poses. They didn't get very creative back then. Great back. I love it when they've been playing a while and they got the big list of accomplishments. And remember, back then, kids didn't have the internet. And unless they had a baseball almanac, this is how they knew their stats. And a lot of kids, they liked the cartoons. I always remember the cartoons. And then they would read the stats. And this is how they would know what their lifetime average was, how many hits, how many home runs. So 518 as of this one. And then they'd even put his picture on a checklist. So here's a checklist from 1967 with his picture on it. He has another checklist picture. I don't have that one. This is the only one I have. So, if you want a Mickey Mantle card, that's a cheaper route to go. Then we have his 1967 base card. So great picture of a smiling Mantle. I've heard people even in the past talk about how they think this is his best card. I don't know about that, but it's a beautiful card. Got the great green back and the nice cartoons. Then you got his 1966, and you can tell these two poses, I've looked at them over the years, but they're different. I mean, they got different backgrounds. There's some slight differences in the wrinkle in his shirts and things like that. But I mean, you would think it's almost exactly the same pose. I mean, it is the same pose, but it almost looks like exact same picture. But you can see even the shadows are a little bit different. So, but this is his 66. It's got those pale pink backs. It's a great card as well. And then we move into 1965. I looked forever for this card. Well, not forever, but for months, I looked for this card because this card in this year is notorious for being out of center. And this one's not perfect by any stretch. I mean, it's a little bit of a diamond cut and it's off center left to right, but it's much better than the other ones when you're going into a mid-grade is what you're looking for, like I was. I live in that 5 range, and sometimes above, sometimes below. But I know at that point it's going to be a nice card. So that's a 65. Another multiplayer card. It's the 1964 AL Bombers card with Maris, Cash, Mantle, and Kaline. Another great picture of them in Yankee Stadium. 4 great players. Of course, anytime you get Maris and Mantle on a single card, Topps knew what they were doing after what happened in '61. So tells a little bit about each player and what they had done. So great card. Again, great way to get into Mantles. You're going to save some money by doing the multiplayer route. Here, sideways. And then we got the 64 Topps. And another one of his stance pictures. Got him there in Yankee Stadium before batting practice. It's a great image of Mick. It's got that pale, I don't know what color, orange peach colored. But right about now is when he's starting to see a decline with all the pain he felt in his knees. But we'll go over that in the next episode. Bombers best card. We got Tom Thresh, Mickey Mantle, and Bobby Richardson. And the Bronx Bombers card and talks a little bit about him there. And this is from 1963. And then we got this really nice card. I really like the design of these. It's a great picture of Mantle. You can see the Yankee Stadium facade in the background. This is 1963 base card. These cards, again, are difficult to find in good condition because of this colored border down here. And this one isn't too bad. And I'm proud to own it. So, got a Mickey has hit 14 World Series homers cartoon on the back. So it's just a fantastic card of a fantastic player. This is a multiplayer card that is sought after, and for obvious reasons. This is the 1962 AL home run leaders. It's got Roger Maris right there. It's got the floating head design in the 1962s even. But it's got to hit that 61 homer mark that year. And I actually had this one graded. I got this in a lot of cards and sent it off. I was happy with the 4. But it's got Jim Gentile, had 46. Harmon Killebrew tied him with 46. And then the Mick had 54. So he had a really good year too. And for there, wow, you know, they were going neck and neck for that home run crown. But talks about all the leaders all the way down to whoever hit 18. So it's a great card. This, again, out of all the home run cards ever made, I think this one right here is the best because of the significance of the home run chase that year. And then we get into another multiplayer card. Now this one right here is probably the #1 multiplayer card in my book. The Manager's Dream card from 1962. It's got Mantle and Mays on it. Imagine a manager having both those guys on their team. In the background, you got Hank Aaron. Not really sure who that is. I would say it looks like it's a pinstripe. So I was going to say it almost looks like Dodger colors. I don't know who that is. If you do, leave it in the comments. I'm sure I could have looked it up beforehand, but I didn't. Both got on their gloves. Now, Mays had plenty of good years after 62. He tore it up. He led the league in WAR in the mid-60s. But Mantle, he was starting to decline with his health and stuff. So there's the back. And here's the 62 card. Great. Mantle always looks good with that light blue sky background. He has some iconic cards with the light blue behind him. So this is his 62. Again, very condition sensitive card with this wood border. A lot of people don't like these. I really like the 62s. I never realized as a kid until in the last couple of years, actually, I started realizing that the wood is supposed to represent the wood paneling you saw in so many people's houses back then. My grandparents had it. And you can see it's rolled up right here. So it's been like a poster that was on a kid's wall, and it's kind of showing it rolled up to show the name and number. So it's pretty neat design, actually. And of course, it has the cartoon. Says the pitcher gets a Mickey. At Joplin in 1950, Mickey led his league with a .383 batting average. We just talked about how he tore it up in Joplin that year, and everybody knew he was going to be a star one day. The next card, another great home run leader card from 1961. This one Mantle had led. So he had 40. Maris had 39. Lemon had 38. And Calavito had 35. So this is the AL 1960s home run leaders on the 1961 card. Another great way to get a Mantle if the budget's permitting. So yeah, it's a great card. And this one's cool because it tells all the American League home run champions from 1960 all the way down to 1901, where you see Crawford with Detroit had 7. And then you had Home Run Baker leading 4 years in a row with 9, 10, 12, and 8. So, and then you get into the Ruth years, and then Jimmy Fox, who I just mentioned, who was a big deal to Casey Stengel. Then we got the 1961 Mantle Sporting News card. Looks like he's breaking through a newspaper. And doesn't have the light blue on this one. It's got the black background, but another great card from an iconic player. Then you had the most valuable player cards back in the day. This is 1961, and there was the Banks, and you had the Aaron and the Mutual and all that. But these are great cards. They unfortunately are known to have the fish eyes, so this has a few of them on there. It's a well-centered card with good eye appeal, and tells when he won the MVP in 56 and 57. And we'll get to that in the next episode. And here's the 61. And again, this card's kind of difficult to find centered. This one had good eye appeal and fit my taste for a card, so I was happy to grab it when I did. Said he batted 400 in the 1960 World Series, and Mickey has won the AL home run title 4 times. So coming into 61, a lot of people predicted that he one day could challenge for Babe Ruth's home run record. And, you know, Aaron was just kind of lurking in the shadows at that point, but, you know, Mantle was the big dog. Here's the 1960 Topps All-Star card. And this one has a good grade, good centered, nice corners, but does have that print defect right through it, that line. So, but it's a great card. Again, these cards right here, you're going to not pay the premium as you do for the base card. So it's a great card to get into for the price. And then we have the 1960s Mantle and Boyer, rival all-stars. And great card of 2 great players. And got the blue background again. Really cool kind of deco style of the 60s right there. Like the triangular angles on the card. It's a great card. So, Clete Boyer and Mickey Mantle. And then the last card is the 1960 card. And this one, as you can tell, is autographed. I got this one graded at the National this year in Cleveland. And when I was a kid, these 1960s, I thought they were so awesome looking with the alternating colors on their name and having the double picture on the card. And it's just a great picture of Mantle. So this card right here has got a really bold ballpoint pen signature. And so the story behind this one, here's the back. The story behind this one is this card right here I saw it on a Facebook page, baseball card page, where people sell and trade cards. And it was raw. And this guy had the card and he was trying to sell it. And I'll tell you, it was $2,000. And everybody was making fun of him, saying, you'll never sell it. You need to get it graded. And he kept trying to explain to him he couldn't afford to get it graded. He was a trim carpenter, and he was trying to start his own business, and he needed to buy tools. And he didn't have enough money to get it graded. He needed to sell it now just to get money. And he was assuring people that he knew it was real. He got it from a guy that used to be a card dealer who had got it in person. He trusted the guy, and everybody was dogging him. And so I got a hold of the guy and sent him a DM, and he gave me his phone number. I got him to send me some videos. So what I saw in the videos, what you're seeing right here, to me, when a signature like that is indented, and I could be wrong, I'm not a signature expert, but it's indented in the card, which means you had to put some pressure on the signature. Also, it's in ballpoint pen, and it's signed really small. If I was going to fake a signature, number one, I would sign it big, and I would sign it in Sharpie so I didn't have to press down. And to me, I was willing to take a chance. There's a lot of forged Mantle signatures out there, but this one, when he was turning it like that, and I saw it in the light, I just thought, it looks real to me. So I bought it, and he put sold on the posting, and everybody was like, oh my God, he did sell it. So yeah, he sold it, and I got it graded, and it got an auto 10 and a very good 3 on the card grade, and I'm really proud of that. So I rolled the dice, and it paid off. Now, you know, maybe it doesn't pay off again if I try that, but it paid off this time. I'm really proud of the card. So I appreciate you looking at them. So this is all the cards on this one. We'll do all the 50s on the next episode. And thanks for hanging in there with me, and we'll finish it up here right now. All right. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll finish up on the next episode, and we'll talk about from his rookie year, what happened during his rookie year, what happened during the 50s, and how he kind of ended his career. In the next episode, it was just too much. I got too many Mickey Mantle cards to make it one episode. You can see how many that was, and that's just half of them. That's all the 60s. So we'll get to the 50s. I've got all his 50s tops, Bowman and Red Heart as well. So stay tuned for that. We'll talk about them and get into that on the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.